The sound of crunching ashes underfoot broke the stillness of the dry hills near Fresno. Daniel, a 41-year-old ranger, paused, squinting at the patch of blackened earth that seemed out of place. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt plastic, lingering like a guilty secret. He knelt, his hands gripping a shovel, digging into the ash that covered the ground. His heart raced as he uncovered shards of glass, twisted metal, and remnants of fuel cans. Each layer of debris whispered of a fire far larger and more dangerous than any report had suggested. His brow furrowed as he uncovered a ring of stones, imperfectly placed, as if someone had tried to conceal the evidence of what had happened here. Then, beneath another layer, he felt something solid, a metallic box, warped and blackened. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. It was the type of equipment used in illegal explosive tests, things he had only seen in training videos. He recoiled slightly, his instinct screaming at him to turn back, but there was more. Alongside the box lay a charred badge, the name barely visible. A volunteer he recognized, one who had vanished from the firefighting team years ago without a trace. The memories came rushing back unbidden, a face full of determination, laughter shared over campfires, long nights battling blazes together. That man had been part of a brotherhood, one that should have never known the tragedy of disappearance. Daniel's radio crackled in his hand, a reminder that he was not alone, yet it felt heavier than before. Calling 911 was no longer just a matter of reporting a fire. It meant reaching into a dark web of negligence, perhaps even crime. He thought of the forest, the lives it sheltered, and the pride that fueled the people he knew. He hesitated, the weight of the decision crashing down on him. Would he expose the truth behind the ash? The recklessness, the pride, the lies, or would he allow the forest to burn in silence, too afraid to face the implications of what he had discovered? As he dialed, Daniel realized that the hardest fire to extinguish often burned inside the hearts of men, igniting their vanity and leading them to gamble everything, including lives, to avoid admitting their mistakes. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the charred ground as he waited for the operator to answer, feeling the chill of fear mingling with the heat of his conviction. In that moment, he understood this was more than just a call. It was a reckoning. A fire had ignited within him, one that demanded to be acknowledged, no matter the cost. In the days leading up to the discovery, Daniel had settled into a familiar routine, patrolling the rugged terrain of Fresno's hills. The job was more than just a career. It was his life's purpose, a commitment to protect the land he loved. Each morning, he would rise before dawn, the rich aroma of brewing coffee wafting through his small kitchen, grounding him as he prepared for the day's work. He relished those quiet moments, watching the first light stretch over the hills, illuminating the dew-kissed grass. As he sipped his coffee, he could hear the familiar sounds of the sleepy town waking up, roosters crowing, distant car engines starting, and the faint chatter of neighbors greeting each other. He would often pause to appreciate these simple rhythms of life, feeling grateful for the community that he served. His old pickup truck, a reliable companion, was a patchwork of faded paint and worn upholstery, each scratch and dent telling stories of long days spent in the sun. As he drove down the winding roads, the engine rumbled alongside the sound of bird calls and rustling leaves. The route was well trodden, passing by the small diner where locals gathered for breakfast. The smell of sizzling bacon and fresh pancakes wafted through the open windows, and he would often wave to Martha, the waitress, who always had a warm smile and a fresh pot of coffee waiting for him. In his small office, cluttered with maps and reports, he would review cases, listen to the radio crackle with updates, and discuss strategies with fellow rangers. They shared tales of past fires, the struggles and triumphs intertwined with the spirit of the land they loved. It was a brotherhood, forged in smoke and camaraderie, where every victory felt like a collective achievement, and every loss was a shared wound. Daniel often thought about the people who relied on the forest, the families who visited on weekends, the wildlife that thrived in the underbrush. The forest was not just a job, it was a vital part of the community, a shared heritage that had been passed down through generations. Yet something had shifted in the air that summer. The drought had parched the earth, the hills growing brittle, like fragile memories waiting to crumble. The once lush greenery now appeared dusty and brown, the land thirsting for rain. Dead grass crunched underfoot, and the vibrant colors of the forest seemed muted, as if the trees themselves were mourning. He recalled conversations with locals, whispers of fires that had started without explanation, warnings that had been ignored. They spoke of strange occurrences, flickering lights in the distance at odd hours, the scent of smoke lingering in the air even when no fire was reported. Daniel noted the unease in their voices, a shared anxiety that hung like a heavy fog over the town. The forest, once a sanctuary, now felt like a ticking time bomb. It weighed on him, like the oppressive heat of the sun hanging in the sky. He began to pay closer attention to the signs around him, his instincts honed by years of experience. As he stepped into the open air each day, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He carried a small silver compass, a gift from his father, as a reminder of his duty to guide others and find his way through the darkness. The compass had seen better days. Its glass was scratched, the needle wavering slightly, but it still held the meaning of direction and purpose. On that fateful day, as he hiked deeper into the forest, the sun cast playful patterns through the leaves, but the unease he felt was tangible. The silence was too loud, the forest too still. It was a sensation he couldn't shake, like a warning echoing through the trees. He pressed on, hoping it was just the lingering effects of the drought that had him on edge. Each step felt heavier than the last, and he couldn't help but glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see someone watching him from the shadows. The deeper he ventured, the more he felt the weight of the world pressing in. Daniel had always been attuned to nature, feeling its pulse and rhythm, but today was different. There was a stillness, an eerie calm that set his instincts on high alert. As he moved through the thicket, he noticed the absence of wildlife. The usual chirping of birds, the rustle of small animals in the underbrush, all seemed muted, as if the forest was holding its breath. Upon discovering the ashes, his instincts flared to life, the familiar scent of danger filling his lungs. The sight of the burned earth, the refuse of fuel cans, and the ring of stones twisted in his gut. His heart quickened as he grappled with the implications of what lay before him. Daniel couldn't help but connect the dots. This fire was no accident. It was as if the landscape had opened a wound, revealing a hidden truth that had long been buried. As he unearthed the remnants, a growing sense of dread settled within him. Was this part of the neglect he had sensed in the community? Had someone been playing with fire, quite literally, risking lives for their own gains? The ashes whispered to him, telling tales of recklessness that resonated with the fears he had heard from the townsfolk. The radio in his hand crackled again, pulling him from his thoughts. He could hear the chatter of other rangers, their voices a lifeline in the stillness. "We've got reports of smoke from the east side," one voice said, urgent and sharp. "Everyone stay alert." But in that moment, the radio felt more like a noose, tightening around his resolve as he uncovered the truth hidden beneath the ash. The fire that had burned here might have been an isolated incident, but its implications could ripple through the community like a shockwave. As he returned home that evening, the sun setting behind the hills, Daniel felt the heaviness of his discovery weighing on his mind. Each shadow seemed to whisper secrets, and he could feel the forest breathing around him, alive with the weight of history. He stared out at the horizon, where the sky melted into hues of orange and purple, a beautiful facade that contrasted the turmoil brewing inside. The taste of uncertainty lingered, bitter and unsettling. He spent the night turning the events over in his mind, grappling with the enormity of what he had found. Sleep eluded him as he mulled over the implications. He envisioned the charred badge alongside the box, a tangible reminder of the past he couldn't ignore. Memories flashed through his mind, laughter shared around campfires, the camaraderie during long nights spent battling blazes together. The more he uncovered, the more questions arose. Who had been here? What were they hiding? Was it an experiment gone wrong, or did they intend to cause harm? The radio buzzed with updates on reported fires, but Daniel found himself distracted, contemplating the potential consequences of inaction. Each report felt like a ticking clock, counting down to another tragedy. He combed through the evidence he had gathered, finding pieces that hinted at a larger story lurking just beneath the surface. The inconsistencies in reports haunted him. Fires that seemed to appear overnight, the absence of thorough investigations. The landscape shifted around him, transforming into a maze of moral dilemmas. The sun beat down relentlessly, mirroring the heat of his growing anxiety. As he continued to dig deeper into the truth, the shadows of his choices loomed larger, threatening to consume him. Each evening he returned home, the weight of his conscience keeping him awake. He thought of the lives that could be at stake, the families who trusted him to protect their land. The radio on his nightstand crackled softly, a reminder that danger was always near. He wrestled with the implications of his discovery. Reporting it could expose a web of pride and negligence, putting lives at risk, even his own. But staying silent meant allowing the danger to fester, the truth buried beneath the ash, just waiting for someone to uncover it. The familiar sound of birds outside his window, the rustling of leaves in the night, had turned into reminders of the responsibility he carried. As he lay in bed, his mind raced with questions. What would happen if he spoke up? Would he be seen as a hero or a traitor? The lines blurred with each passing day, and the weight of the unknown pressed down on him like an unseen force. He could almost hear the whispers of the forest, urging him to choose a path, either toward truth or silence. The morning after his restless night, Daniel woke with a sense of determination. He knew he had to act. The discovery was not something he could simply bury. There were too many lives at stake, too many reasons to speak up. With a heavy heart, he picked up his phone and dialed the local wildlife office, his hands trembling as he prepared to share what he had found. When Daniel finally called 911, the operator's voice was a lifeline in the storm brewing inside him. "I found something," he said, the sound of his voice feeling foreign. "In the hills, there's evidence of a fire, something more than just an accident." He felt the operator's disbelief, then concern, urging him to stay put until help could arrive. Daniel could feel the ground shifting beneath him, his world turning upside down, while the hills loomed silently in the distance, holding secrets he could no longer ignore. In the moments that followed, he reflected on the choices he made. His thoughts danced between fear and relief, the weight of his decision settling into clarity. He was taking a stand, not just for the forest, but for the truth that needed to be told. When help finally arrived, Daniel stood before them, the box uncovered, ashes swirling around his feet. He felt a strange sense of liberation, knowing he had chosen the path toward honesty, despite the risks. As the sun set behind the hills, casting long shadows that stretched across the ground, he realized that while fires could be extinguished, the flames of pride and fear often burned the brightest. As he watched the officials examine the scene, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a belief that maybe, just maybe, the truth could spark change, leading them all toward a brighter, safer future. That night, he lay awake again, but this time the anxiety was mingled with a sense of purpose. The voices of the community echoed in his mind, urging him to keep going. He thought of the families who relied on the forest for their recreation and the wildlife that called it home. This was no longer just about him, it was about them. In the following days, the media swarmed around the story, casting a spotlight on the situation. Daniel found himself at the center of discussions, the weight of his choice both a burden and a relief. He continued to patrol the hills, but now with renewed purpose. More eyes were watching, more voices were speaking out, and the community began to rally around the truth that had been hidden for too long. He attended town hall meetings where residents shared their fears and frustrations, their voices uniting in a call for accountability. Daniel spoke up, sharing his experiences and what he had uncovered. The people listened intently, their faces reflecting a mix of hope and determination. It was a powerful moment, one where the community came together, ready to face the challenge ahead. As autumn approached, Daniel noticed subtle changes in the air. The scent of pine mingling with the cool breeze, the vibrant colors of the leaves signaling a new beginning. The forest, once a silent witness to negligence, began to thrive again as people came together to protect it. One evening, as he sat on his porch, he held his father's compass in hand, reflecting on the journey he had taken. The needle pointed true, a reminder that clarity often comes from the depths of uncertainty. Daniel smiled softly, realizing that he had chosen the right path, not just for himself, but for the entire community. And as the stars began to twinkle in the sky, he felt a sense of peace settle over him, knowing that he had faced the fire and emerged stronger on the other side. In the months that followed, the community implemented new safety protocols, and Daniel watched with pride as the landscape began to change. The once muted colors of the forest bloomed again, as if the trees themselves were celebrating the revival of hope. He took his daily patrols seriously, knowing that vigilance was key to ensuring the safety of the land and its inhabitants. Daniel became a local hero of sorts, but he remained humble. He understood that this was not just about him, it was a collective effort. He often joined community groups in their efforts to maintain the forest and educate others about fire safety. They organized weekends of activity where families came together to plant trees, clear debris, and share stories of the land. It was inspiring to see such unity, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And so the hills stood tall, bearing witness to the truth that had emerged from the ashes. A reminder that sometimes the hardest fires to extinguish are the ones within our hearts. Daniel had learned that facing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, could ignite change and lead to a safer, brighter future. And you? Have you ever faced a choice that could change everything? Sometimes the hardest fires to extinguish are the ones we carry within us, waiting for the courage to confront them. The earth remembers, and it whispers the truth to those who listen. As the months rolled on, Daniel immersed himself in his duties, but the weight of his discovery lingered like a shadow, subtly shifting the dynamics of his life. The community's response to the revelations had been overwhelmingly positive, yet there was an undercurrent of tension that Daniel couldn't ignore. It became clear that while the townsfolk rallied around the truth, others saw his actions as a threat to the established order, challenging their authority. The dry summer melted into a crisp fall, and Daniel reveled in the changes around him. The air grew cooler, the trees donned their autumn finery, and the forest, once a silent witness to negligence, began to flourish anew. Families flocked to the hills for hiking and picnics, their laughter breaking the once muted silence. Camaraderie among the townspeople strengthened as they organized events to educate children about fire safety. Daniel found himself leading workshops, his passion fueling their enthusiasm as he imparted lessons learned from the fires that had threatened their home. One afternoon, standing before a group of eager young faces, he asked, "What do we do if we see smoke?" The children shouted in unison, "Alert an adult!" Their excitement was infectious. This was what he had fought for, the safety of the forest and the community that depended on it. Yet amidst the joy, a nagging doubt crept into his mind. Folding his arms, he glanced at the hills. The unease he felt before discovering the ashes returned. The forest was thriving, but the echoes of the past were never far behind. He couldn't shake the feeling that there were still secrets hidden among the trees, waiting to be uncovered. One particularly cool day, Daniel decided to revisit the site where he had found the box and the charred badge. He needed closure, a sense of finality. The drive felt longer than usual, his thoughts swirling with memories of that fateful moment. Each curve in the road brought him closer to the scene of his discovery, his heart heavy with apprehension. When he arrived, the area looked different, as if it had almost forgotten the horrors that had transpired there. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. He stepped carefully, the crunch of twigs underfoot punctuating the silence. As he approached the spot, he paused, taking a deep breath, allowing the familiar sense of pine and earth to ground him. Kneeling at the site, he ran his fingers over the smooth stones that formed the ring. It was a stark reminder of the recklessness that had endangered lives. Closing his eyes, he let memories wash over him, the fear, the uncertainty, the call to action. It was a moment that had changed him, igniting a fire within to protect what mattered most. While sifting through the ash and debris once more, he noticed something glinting beneath the surface. Curiosity piqued, he began to dig, unearthing a small metallic object. It was a piece of equipment he didn't recognize, a part of some contraption, perhaps. Its presence reignited his sense of urgency. There was still more to uncover. Daniel placed the object carefully in his pocket, a tangible reminder to investigate further. He stood up, brushing the dirt off his knees, and felt a sudden chill run down his spine. Looking around, he half expected to see someone watching him, but the forest remained still and silent. With determination, he decided to return to town to consult with the local fire chief, Tom, who had been supportive of his efforts to promote safety and transparency. When he arrived at the fire station, Tom greeted him warmly. "Daniel, good to see you," he said, patting Daniel on the back. "You've been doing great work. The community really appreciates it." Daniel returned the smile, but couldn't shake the urgency in his voice. "Tom, I found something at the old site today, a piece of equipment. I think it might be connected to what happened with the fire." Tom's expression shifted, curiosity replacing his jovial demeanor. "Let's take a look." In the small office filled with maps and reports, Daniel laid the metallic object on the table. It was small, with intricate designs etched into the surface. Tom examined it closely, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This looks like it could be part of a remote ignition device, something that might be used to start fires intentionally. We might need to investigate this more thoroughly." Daniel's heart raced at Tom's words. "So you think someone started the fire on purpose?" Tom nodded, his expression serious. "It's not just possible. It's a concern we need to address. We've seen too many fires that seem coincidental, and if there are people deliberately setting them, that's a threat to everyone in this community." The implications weighed heavily on Daniel. They had already been through so much, and the thought of someone out there putting lives at risk was unbearable. "What do we do next?" "We need to report this to the authorities," Tom said. "I'll reach out to local law enforcement and see if they can help us investigate further. We need to keep this under wraps for now. If there's a chance that someone is trying to cause harm, we don't want to alert them." Daniel felt a wave of relief wash over him. Finally, they were on a path toward uncovering the truth. They spent the afternoon compiling reports, documenting their findings, and preparing for what lay ahead. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting shadows across the floor, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fire that had once consumed the forest had sparked something greater within him, a determination to protect his community at all costs. The following days, filled with tension and anticipation, rolled by. Tom arranged meetings with law enforcement, gathering evidence while Daniel continued his patrols, ever watchful. With each step, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. One evening, Daniel returned home to find a note slipped under his door. It was handwritten, the ink smudged in places, reading, "Leave it alone, Ranger. You don't know what you're getting into." His heart raced as he read the words. Who had sent this? Was it a warning? He felt anger mixed with fear. This was no longer just about him. It was about the entire community's safety. He had to stay focused on the mission. The next day, he shared the note with Tom. "This is serious," Tom said, his tone grave. "It sounds like someone is trying to intimidate you." "I won't back down," Daniel replied firmly. "We need to get to the bottom of this. If someone is behind the fires, they need to be stopped." Tom nodded, admiration in his eyes. "That's the spirit. We'll move forward with the investigation, but we'll do it carefully. For now, let's keep this between us and the authorities." As the investigation progressed, Daniel felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. New evidence surfaced, strange footprints near the site, reports of suspicious vehicles in the area, and whispers of a group gathering in the woods at odd hours. With each new piece, the puzzle began to come together, but the danger loomed larger. One night, Daniel received a call from Tom. "We've got a lead," he said, urgency in his voice. "There's been a sighting of a vehicle near the site. We're heading out to investigate." Without hesitation, Daniel grabbed his gear and rushed to the fire station, adrenaline surging through him. When he arrived, the sun was setting, casting a fiery glow. Tom and other rangers were preparing for the night's mission. "We received a tip-off that someone might be planning to set another fire," Tom explained. "We need to get there before they do." As they drove toward the suspected site, Daniel felt a mix of determination and fear. The forest loomed dark and foreboding, but he couldn't turn back now. This was his chance to confront the threat head-on. When they arrived, the air was thick with tension. They parked the truck and unloaded their equipment. Daniel's heart pounded as they crept through the trees, the sound of leaves crunching beneath their boots, the only noise breaking the stillness. Suddenly, a rustle caught his attention. "Did you hear that?" one ranger whispered, scanning the area. The tension escalated as they fell silent, each member on high alert. "Let's go," Tom whispered urgently, signaling for the others to back away. They turned and crept back through the underbrush, hearts racing as they made their way to the truck. Once inside the safety of the vehicle, Daniel felt the gravity of the situation settle over him. The threats were real, but he knew they couldn't back down now. The safety of the forest and the community depended on their next steps. In the following days, they worked tirelessly to gather evidence, documenting everything they had witnessed that night. Daniel felt the pressure mounting, his sense of urgency intensifying with each passing hour. He knew that if they didn't act soon, the consequences could be catastrophic. Finally, they organized a meeting with local law enforcement, laying out the evidence they had collected. The officers listened intently, their expressions grave, as Daniel recounted the events of that night. It was a crucial moment that could determine the fate of the community. After the meeting, Police Chief Johnson approached Daniel. "We're going to take this seriously," he promised. "We'll set up surveillance to monitor the area and keep a watchful eye on those individuals. We won't let them get away with this." Relief washed over Daniel, but the weight of uncertainty still lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against time. Each day felt like a ticking clock, and he worried about what might happen if they didn't act quickly enough. Weeks passed, and the tension within the community remained palpable. The atmosphere was charged, residents on edge, whispering about the fires that could still threaten their home. Daniel continued his patrols, but a sense of vigilance permeated his every move. Then, one evening, he received a call from Tom. "We've got a sighting," Tom said urgently. "Meet me at the old site." Daniel's heart raced. He arrived to find Tom and a couple of other rangers gathered, their faces set with determination. "We saw a vehicle parked nearby, could be connected to that group," Tom explained. "We need to investigate before they make a move." As they approached the clearing where they had previously seen the suspicious group, Daniel felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. They moved quietly amongst the trees, the air thick with tension. Suddenly, they spotted a flicker of light, a campfire. The sight sent adrenaline surging through Daniel's veins. "There they are," he whispered. "We need to call this in." Using his radio, he relayed their position to the authorities as they observed the group from a distance. Daniel's heart raced, wondering what would unfold next. Would this be the moment they finally uncovered the truth? As the police arrived, they moved swiftly, surrounding the area and apprehending the individuals near the fire. Daniel watched their faces, recognizing a few as members of the group he had seen earlier. The sense of relief that washed over him was palpable, a culmination of their efforts to protect the community. Later, as the police chief spoke with the apprehended individuals, Daniel felt a mix of triumph and lingering anxiety. They had made progress, but he knew there would still be obstacles ahead. The community had faced too much pain already, and he hoped that this would mark the end of the turmoil. In the following days, with the suspects in custody and the community rallying together, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. He dedicated himself to educating others about fire safety while remaining vigilant. The scars of the past would take time to heal, but they were on a path toward recovery. Finally, one evening, he stood at the edge of the forest, watching families gather for a community bonfire, their laughter echoing in the cool air. This was a moment of connection, a celebration of resilience. As he joined the festivities, Daniel reflected on what had transpired. The forest, once a battleground of fear and uncertainty, had transformed into a sanctuary of strength and solidarity. They had faced the flames and emerged stronger as a community. And as the night wore on, he found himself contemplating the future. The forest would always hold its secrets, but together they had the power to rewrite its story. They would continue to guard against the fires that threatened their home, forging a path toward a brighter, safer future. And you? Have you ever faced a challenge that tested your resolve? Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones fought not just with fire, but with the strength of community and the courage to seek the truth. The forest remembers, and it whispers the stories of those who dare to protect it. The days following the apprehension of the group weighed heavily on Daniel, a mix of relief and tension lingering in the air. The community's response to the revelations had been overwhelmingly positive, but there was an undercurrent of anxiety that he couldn't shake. While many rallied around the truth, others viewed his actions as a challenge to the established order, creating an atmosphere charged with uncertainty. As summer melted into fall, the air grew cooler and the trees donned their autumn colors. Families flocked to the hills for hiking and picnics, their laughter breaking the silence. Camaraderie among townspeople strengthened as they organized events to educate children about fire safety. Daniel found himself leading workshops, his passion fueling their enthusiasm. One afternoon, he stood before a group of eager young faces asking, "What do we do if we see smoke?" The children shouted, "Alert an adult!" Their excitement was infectious, and Daniel felt a swell of pride. This was what he had fought for, the safety of the forest and the community that depended on it. Yet amidst the joy, a nagging doubt crept into his mind. The unease he had felt before discovering the ashes returned as he glanced at the hills. They were thriving, but there were still secrets hidden among the trees. One cool day, Daniel revisited the site of his earlier discovery, seeking closure. The drive felt longer than usual, memories swirling in his mind. When he arrived, the area looked different, as if it had almost forgotten its past. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Kneeling at the site, he ran his fingers over the stones of the ring. This was a stark reminder of the recklessness that had endangered lives. It was a moment that had changed him, igniting a fire within to protect what mattered most. As he sifted through ash and debris, he noticed something glinting beneath the surface. Curiosity piqued. He began to dig, unearthing a small metallic object, a part of some contraption he didn't recognize. Its presence reignited his sense of urgency. There was still more to uncover. Daniel placed the object carefully in his pocket and felt a chill run down his spine. Looking around, he half expected to see someone watching him, but the forest remained still and silent. With determination, he decided to return to town and consult with the local fire chief, Tom. When he arrived at the fire station, Tom greeted him warmly. "Daniel, good to see you," he said. "You've been doing great work. The community appreciates it." But Daniel's urgency was palpable. "Tom, I found something today, a piece of equipment. I think it might be connected to the fire." Tom's expression shifted. "Let's take a look." In the small office filled with maps and reports, Daniel laid the metallic object on the table. Tom examined it closely. "This looks like it could be part of a remote ignition device, something that might be used to start fires intentionally. We need to investigate this." Daniel's heart raced. "So, you think someone started the fire on purpose?" Tom nodded, serious. "We've seen too many fires that seem coincidental. If there are people deliberately setting them, it's a threat to everyone." The implications weighed heavily on Daniel. They had faced so much already. "What do we do next?" "We need to report this to the authorities," Tom said. "I'll reach out to local law enforcement. We need to keep this under wraps for now." Relief washed over Daniel. They were on a path toward uncovering the truth. They spent the afternoon compiling reports, documenting their findings, and preparing for the next steps. As the sun dipped lower, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. The following days were filled with tension and anticipation. Tom arranged meetings with law enforcement while Daniel continued his patrols, aware of every rustle in the trees. One evening, Daniel found a note slipped under his door. Handwritten and smudged, it read, "Leave it alone, Ranger. You don't know what you're getting into." His heart raced. Who had sent this? Was it a warning? He felt anger and fear. This was no longer just about him. It was about the safety of the community. He had to stay focused on the mission. He shared the note with Tom. "This is serious. Someone is trying to intimidate you." "I won't back down," Daniel replied. "We need to get to the bottom of this. If someone is behind the fires, they need to be stopped." Tom nodded. "We'll move forward with the investigation, but we'll do it carefully. For now, let's keep this between us and the authorities." As the investigation progressed, Daniel felt excitement and anxiety. New evidence surfaced, strange footprints, suspicious vehicles, and whispers of gatherings in the woods at odd hours. The puzzle began to come together, but the danger loomed larger. One night, Daniel received a call from Tom. "We've got a lead. There's a vehicle parked near the site. We're heading out." Daniel grabbed his gear and rushed to the fire station. When he arrived, Tom and other rangers were preparing for the night's mission. "We received a tip-off that someone might be planning to set another fire," Tom explained. "We need to get there before they do." As they drove toward the site, Daniel felt determination and fear swelling within him. The forest loomed dark and foreboding, but he couldn't turn back. This was his chance to confront the threat head-on. Upon arrival, the air was thick with tension. They parked the truck and unloaded their gear. Daniel's heart pounded as they crept through the trees, the sound of leaves crunching underfoot the only noise. Suddenly, a rustle caught his attention. "Did you hear that?" one ranger whispered, scanning the area. The group froze, each member on high alert. "Let's go!" Tom whispered urgently, signaling for everyone to retreat. They turned and slipped back through the underbrush, hearts racing. Once inside the truck, Daniel felt the weight of the situation settle over him. The threats were real, but they couldn't back down now. The safety of the forest and the community depended on their next steps. In the following days, they worked tirelessly to gather evidence, documenting everything they had witnessed. Daniel felt pressure mounting, urgency intensifying. If they didn't act soon, the consequences could be catastrophic. Finally, they organized a meeting with local law enforcement, laying out the evidence. The officers listened, their expressions grave as Daniel recounted the events of that night. It was a pivotal moment that could determine the community's fate. After the meeting, Police Chief Johnson approached Daniel. "We take this seriously. We'll set up surveillance and keep a watchful eye on those individuals." Relief washed over Daniel, but uncertainty lingered. He felt they were racing against time. Each day felt like a ticking clock, and he feared what might happen if they didn't act quickly enough. Weeks passed, and the tension remained. The atmosphere was charged, and residents whispered about the fires that could threaten their home. Daniel continued patrols, but he stayed vigilant. Then one evening, Daniel received a call from Tom. "We've got a sighting. Meet me at the old site." His heart raced. When he arrived, Tom and a couple of rangers gathered, their faces set with determination. "We saw a vehicle parked nearby. Could be connected to that group," Tom explained. "We need to investigate." As they approached the clearing, Daniel felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. They moved cautiously, the air thick with tension. Suddenly, they spotted a flicker of light, a campfire. Daniel's heart raced. "We need to call this in." Using his radio, he relayed their position to the authorities. Daniel felt a surge of adrenaline. Would this be the moment they finally uncovered the truth? As the police arrived, they moved swiftly, surrounding the area and apprehending the individuals near the fire. Daniel watched, feeling a mix of triumph and lingering anxiety. They had made progress, but he knew challenges remained. In the following days, with the suspects in custody and the community rallying together, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. He dedicated himself to educating others about fire safety while remaining vigilant. The scars of the past would take time to heal, but they were on a path to recovery. Finally, one evening, he stood at the edge of the forest, watching families gather for a community bonfire. This was a moment of connection, a celebration of resilience. As he joined the festivities, Daniel reflected on what had transpired. The forest, once a battleground of fear, had transformed into a sanctuary of strength. They had faced the flames and emerged stronger as a community. And as the night wore on, he contemplated the future. The forest would always hold its secrets, but together they had the power to rewrite its story. They would continue to guard against the fires that threatened their home, forging a path toward a brighter, safer future. And you? Have you ever faced a challenge that tested your resolve? Sometimes the hardest battles are fought not just with fire, but with the strength of community and the courage to seek the truth. The forest remembers, and it whispers the stories of those who dare to protect it. Days turned into weeks, and as the leaves began to fall, signaling the deepening of autumn, Daniel felt a sense of renewal within the community. The apprehension of the arsonists had sparked a fire of activism among the townspeople, a collective determination to safeguard their beloved forest. Yet despite the progress, Daniel knew that the road to healing would be long and fraught with challenges. At the weekly town hall meetings, more residents showed up, eager to voice their concerns and share their ideas. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of urgency. Daniel often found himself at the forefront, rallying the community around the importance of vigilance and education. He presented plans for fire safety workshops, organized cleanup events, and even proposed a Guardians of the Forest program, where volunteers would patrol the trails and report any suspicious activities. One evening, while preparing for an upcoming workshop, Daniel sat in his small office, a stack of notes and pamphlets spread out before him. He reflected on how far they had come as a community. Just months before, fear had gripped them, but now determination shone brightly in their eyes. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. It was a message from Tom. "Need you at the station ASAP. We have a situation." A knot formed in Daniel's stomach. He quickly gathered his things and rushed to the station, the familiar path feeling heavier than usual as anxiety coursed through him. When he arrived, the atmosphere was tense. Officers moved briskly, discussing plans in hushed voices. Tom motioned for Daniel to join him in a small meeting room. "We received reports of suspicious activity near the eastern edge of the forest," he said, his expression serious. "We believe it might be linked to the group we caught, and we need your help to investigate." Daniel nodded, adrenaline kicking in. "What do you need me to do?" "We want you to join the surveillance team and help identify anyone who might be trying to reignite the fires," Tom explained. "We'll have local law enforcement and a few rangers on site, but your familiarity with the area could be crucial." As they prepared for the operation, Daniel felt a mix of fear and determination. The stakes were high, and he knew that the safety of the community depended on their actions tonight. With flashlights in hand, they set out toward the eastern edge of the forest, the trees standing tall, like sentinels in the gathering darkness. The night was eerily quiet, the only sounds the crunch of leaves beneath their boots and the distant calls of owls. "Stay close and keep your eyes peeled," Tom murmured, as they approached a vantage point overlooking a clearing. Daniel's heart raced as he peered into the darkness, scanning for any signs of movement. After what felt like hours of waiting, a flicker of light caught his attention. "There!" he whispered, pointing toward the clearing. The group turned their flashlights toward the source of the light, and Daniel's heart sank as he realized it was a small campfire surrounded by silhouettes. "They're back," he breathed, anger boiling within him. Tom nodded, his jaw set. "We need to call this in. We can't let them get away again." As they prepared to radio for backup, Daniel noticed something in the shadows, movement among the figures. They were gathered around a table, and it appeared they were discussing plans, pointing at a map spread out before them. Daniel squinted, trying to decipher what they were plotting. "Get ready," Tom said, his voice low. "We move in on my signal." Daniel's resolve hardened. They couldn't let this group jeopardize the safety of the forest again. Just then, one of the figures turned, and Daniel caught a glimpse of a familiar face. One of the individuals they had arrested before. "Cameron," Daniel whispered, recognizing the young man. "He was one of the ringleaders last time." Tom's expression darkened. "This changes everything. We have to stop them now." The officers positioned themselves, and Daniel took a deep breath, ready to confront the threat. Just as Tom was about to give the signal to move in, the group by the fire erupted into laughter, the sound sharp and unsettling in the stillness of the night. "Soon, they'll see what happens when they try to take what's ours," Cameron said, his voice dripping with malice. "We'll show them they can't control us." Daniel felt a surge of anger. "They're planning something," he murmured to Tom, who nodded in agreement. "Now," Tom said, raising his hand, "let's go." They moved quickly through the trees, hearts pounding as they charged toward the campfire. The group looked up in surprise as the officers burst into the clearing, flashlights illuminating the scene. "Stop where you are! You're surrounded!" Tom shouted, his voice commanding. Panic erupted among the individuals. They scrambled to their feet, but it was too late. The officers had them cornered, and Daniel felt a surge of adrenaline as he watched them apprehend the group once again. "What do you want? We haven't done anything," Cameron shouted, defiance etched on his face. "Your actions speak for themselves," Tom replied, stepping forward. "You think you can threaten this community and get away with it? Not anymore." As the officers detained the individuals, Daniel felt a mixture of relief and anger. While they had successfully stopped the group again, he knew this battle was far from over. The forest would always hold its secrets, and those who sought to exploit it would continue to pose a threat. In the days that followed, the community rallied around the news of the successful operation. Daniel attended meetings, sharing updates, and encouraging continued vigilance. The apprehension of the group had sparked a renewed sense of unity among the townspeople, and he felt hopeful for the future. During one particularly inspiring town hall meeting, residents voiced their gratitude and shared ideas for further protecting the forest. Daniel stood at the forefront, energized by their enthusiasm. "Together, we can ensure the safety of our land," he said, his voice steady. "We cannot let fear dictate our actions. This forest is a part of who we are, and it's our responsibility to protect it." As the meeting adjourned, Daniel stepped outside to breathe in the cool evening air. He felt a sense of hope rising within him. The forest, once a battleground of fear, had transformed into a symbol of resilience and strength. The community had come together, and despite the challenges ahead, they were united. Later that evening, as Daniel returned home, he reflected on how far they had come. He knew that healing would take time, but the bonds forged through adversity had created a powerful force for change. The forest would always remember the battles fought within its borders, and he was determined to ensure that its future remained bright. Standing at the edge of the forest, Daniel looked out over the landscape, feeling a deep connection to the land and the community he loved. They had faced the flames and emerged stronger together, ready to guard against any threats that lay ahead. And you? Have you ever faced a challenge that tested your resolve? Sometimes the hardest battles are fought not just with fire, but with the strength of community and the courage to seek the truth. The forest remembers, and it whispers the stories of those who dare to protect it. As winter approached, a chill in the air reminded Daniel that the forest would soon be blanketed in snow, transforming the familiar landscape into a serene scene. He found comfort in the season's changes, yet the memories of summer's turmoil lingered in his mind, emphasizing the importance of vigilance in the months to come. The community had rallied together, embracing a spirit of activism born from adversity. Daniel watched as families organized themselves into patrols, committed to ensuring the safety of the forest. They created a Guardians of the Forest program, where volunteers monitored trails and reported suspicious activity. It was heartening to see the townspeople united in a shared mission to protect the land they cherished. One evening, as snowflakes began to fall, Daniel gathered with the community in the town square for their annual winter festival. The air was filled with laughter and warmth, the scent of hot cocoa wafting through the crisp atmosphere. Children frolicked in the snow, their cheeks rosy from the cold, while families adorned the town with festive decorations, transforming Fresno into a winter wonderland. Daniel stood by the fire pit, watching the flames dance as people gathered around. A feeling of belonging swelled within him as he listened to the vibrant chatter. It contrasted sharply with the fear that had gripped the town just months before. Tom approached with a steaming cup of cocoa in hand. "You look deep in thought," he said, smiling. "Just reflecting on how far we've come," Daniel replied. "It's hard to believe we were facing down arsonists just a few months ago, and now here we are, celebrating together." Before they could continue, a commotion at the edge of the square caught Daniel's attention. A group of children dashed past, their laughter punctuated by shouts of excitement. Curious, he turned to see what had sparked their enthusiasm. Across the square, a snowman contest was taking place. Kids raced to pile snow high, their faces lit with joy. Daniel smiled, appreciating the carefree energy of the moment. Then, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. Cameron, the ringleader from the previous summer's chaos. His expression was uncertain as he stood on the edge of the festivities, watching. Daniel's heart raced. He hadn't expected to see Cameron here. "What are you doing here?" Daniel asked, stepping forward to confront him. Cameron raised his hands defensively. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about." "After everything you've done," Daniel snapped, anger boiling, "you don't just get to show up like nothing happened." "I know," Cameron replied, lowering his voice. "I messed up. I was caught up in something I didn't fully understand. I want to apologize. I want to make things right." Daniel studied him, searching for sincerity. He had seen Cameron's darkness before, but now he wondered if there was a glimmer of remorse. "You'll have to prove yourself," Daniel said. "You'll start by joining our patrols and volunteering for cleanup events. This forest needs protection, and you need to earn your place among us." Cameron nodded, relief washing over him. "I'll do whatever it takes." As they talked, the sounds of joy filled the air, warmth from the fire contrasting the cold night. Daniel glanced back at the festivities, feeling hope replace anxiety about Cameron's presence. In the weeks that followed, Daniel and Cameron worked together on community projects. They cleared debris from trails, organized fire safety workshops, and helped at local events to foster unity. Initially, townspeople were skeptical of Cameron's involvement, but Daniel stood by him, vouching for his commitment to change. Slowly, perceptions began to shift as the community witnessed Cameron's determination. One chilly afternoon, while on patrol, Daniel and Cameron stumbled upon a small clearing where deer grazed peacefully. They paused, taking in the sight. "Look at them," Cameron said quietly. "They're so vulnerable, just like the forest." Daniel nodded. "This place needs us. It's our responsibility to protect not just the trees, but the entire ecosystem." Cameron seemed to understand. "I want to help keep it safe," he promised. Daniel smiled, feeling hope rekindle within him. The forest had taught them all important lessons about resilience and the power of community. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead and emerge stronger. As winter melted into spring, bringing new life to the forest, Daniel felt a sense of peace. The road to healing was long, but with every step they took, they were forging a brighter future. One built on hope, unity, and their commitment to protect the land they loved. Standing at the edge of the forest, Daniel looked out over the landscape, deeply connected to the land and the community. They had faced the flames together and emerged stronger, ready to guard against any future threats. "And you?" Have you ever faced a challenge that tested your resolve? Sometimes the hardest battles are fought not just with fire, but with the strength of community and the courage to seek the truth. The forest remembers, and it whispers the stories of those who dare to protect it. As spring began to unfurl its vibrant colors across the forest, Daniel felt an invigorating sense of renewal. The trees, once bare and silent, now danced with fresh greenery, and the air buzzed with the sounds of life awakening after a long winter. It was a reminder that nature had a way of healing, just as the community had begun to mend its wounds. One sunny afternoon, Daniel stood at the edge of the forest. A group of children gathered around him, wide-eyed and eager. They were part of the Guardians of the Forest program, and today was their first day of patrol. He felt a rush of pride, watching them giggle and chatter excitedly, their energy infectious. "All right, everyone," he called, raising his voice above the chatter. "Today, we're going to learn how to identify signs of wildlife and understand how we can protect them. Remember, we're not just guardians of the trees, we're guardians of all living things in this forest." The children nodded, their faces serious, eager to absorb every word. Daniel led them deeper into the woods, teaching them about animal tracks, the importance of maintaining trails, and how to recognize signs of fire danger. He was reminded of his own childhood, exploring these woods, and he felt grateful to pass on that knowledge to the next generation. As they walked, Daniel felt a sense of responsibility wash over him. He had fought hard to protect this forest, and now it was his duty to instill that same love and respect in the children who would inherit it. Later that day, as they wrapped up their patrol, Daniel caught sight of Cameron across the clearing. He was working alongside a group of adults, helping to plant new trees as part of a community reforestation effort. Daniel watched as Cameron laughed with the others, a stark contrast to the young man he had once confronted. "Hey, Daniel!" Cameron called, waving him over. "Come help us out!" Daniel approached, feeling a blend of skepticism and hope. "Looks like you're getting the hang of it," he said, a hint of a smile creeping across his face. Cameron grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "I really appreciate this chance to prove myself. I never thought I'd be doing something like this." For a moment, Daniel hesitated, considering the journey they had both taken. "It's never too late to change, you know," he said, surprising himself with the warmth in his tone. "Just keep showing up like this, and you'll earn their trust." As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue across the forest, Daniel felt a profound sense of connection to the land and the community. The laughter of children echoed in the trees, mingling with the sounds of nature, and he realized that they were all part of something larger, a web of life that was resilient and intertwined. That evening, as Daniel returned home, he reflected on the progress they had made. The community had come together to heal, and he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They had faced down fear and uncertainty, and now they were united in purpose, committed to protecting the forest they all loved. And you? Have you ever been part of something greater than yourself? Sometimes the strongest bonds are forged in the fires of adversity, and the journey of healing begins when we choose to stand together. The forest remembers the stories of those who dare to protect it, and with every step forward, they write a new chapter, a story of hope, resilience, and love for the land.